Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 10 years now, we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show today. We're meeting with George Vodin of Fancy Art NFP. And Fancy Art NFP is your one-stop shop for all your wall decor needs. And we're going to talk to George about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we have a great show.
The Stone Coat Franchise Opportunity. Are you looking for a unique and lucrative franchise opportunity? If so, take a look at Stone Coat. With a patented process which creates a true stone finish on almost any wall or ceiling, Stone Coat is a true game-changing product in the multi-billion-dollar construction industry. Stone Coat is applied faster, cleaner, and cheaper than conventional quarried stone, which saves both time and money. With advantages in remodel and new construction of both residential and commercial projects, Stone Coat is a true crossover product. The Stone Coat franchise opportunity provides a low startup cost, low operating expenses, comprehensive training, ongoing support, and no royalty payments. For more information on the Stone Coat franchise opportunity, go to www.stonecoatfranchise.com. That's www.stonecoatfranchise.com, or call us at 972-380-2700. That's 972-380-2700.
Franchise Teacher.
Would you like to know how to franchise your concept or grow your franchise business?
Meet the experts at Franchise Teacher.
The goal of Franchise Teacher is to teach, coach, consult, and advise. The team of experts at Franchise Teacher will evaluate your business model and present you with a winning business strategy.
Franchise Teacher will help you decide whether or not your concept works and if it's franchisable. Franchise Teacher is proud to have over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors.
Franchise Teacher are developers of over a dozen franchise systems, which include brick and mortar as well as home-based concepts of nearly 3,000 combined franchise locations.
Whether you need to add more units or get more customers, Franchise Teacher can help. We will teach. Franchise Teacher will help you learn our proven system. Coach. Franchise Teacher will help you provide a game plan to succeed. Consult. Franchise Teacher will make sure you stay on track. And advise. Franchise Teacher will help you learn from our over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors. Take advantage of our free, no-obligation phone consultation. Simply go to franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032. That's franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, LLC, and you're listening to Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 10 years now, we've been asking the Franchpreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. We're meeting with George Vodin of the Fancy Art NFP franchise opportunity. At Fancy Art, NFP is your one-stop shop for all your wall decor needs. Hi, George. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Marty. Pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, George. I feel like I know you because I've been following you on LinkedIn for some time now, so it's finally great to have the chance to get to speak with you. We always like to ask our guests, where are you calling from this morning, George?
From our corporate headquarters in Barrington, Illinois.
Oh, fantastic. How's the weather there this morning, George?
It's drizzly, but it's better than snow.
It is. It's raining here in Pennsylvania as well, so I think it's going to be raining for a while. But maybe we can go back to the beginning, George, and you could talk a little bit about the evolution of Fancy Art NFP.
Sure. It's funny where life takes you if you give it a chance. That's what I tell people when they ask. I was a commodity broker, and one weekend with nothing better to do, I thought I'd go to an art auction, maybe buy a couple things for the house. When I got there, I knew nothing about art, and I saw that things were being sold for a lot of money, and eventually they got to things in the back room. And by that time, the crowd had dwindled, and these were unfinished things. And they were being sold for a pittance, so I started buying. I ended up going home with a 20-foot truck loaded up with art and framing material, not having any idea what I was going to do with it. Doing art was to sell some of it, and at the same time, I was educating. And I realized early on, people will only spend a short time focused on something, then their mind goes on to other things. So I thought if I could use a little handheld computer to do some of the calculating, it would make it faster here. So I started tinkering, and one thing led to another. And after about a year, I had a program that did everything. Only then, the light went out of my head. I said, gee, with this, almost anybody can do picture framing. It would be a good franchise. So that's when we opened our first store. And
it's fantastic. I mean, because framed...
About that.
No, I was going to say, George, framed art is really in every home and office, if you think about it, in the United States or even the world, so you can say, So, and the interesting thing about this market, when I was studying it, I was surprised. It's not even in the mature stage, is it?
Correct. It's the only industry I know of that's not mature and fully developed. And there's a couple of reasons for that. First, typically the type of person who's attracted to it are artists. And as a group, they're not very good business people. Mostly their shops are very small, poorly merchandised. They have a limited selection. And they farm out their work to a cadre of middlemen, each one taking a profit. So by the time it reaches the consumer, it becomes very expensive. And so we've turned that model on its head.
That's fantastic. How do you typically describe the process, when you're talking to a prospective franchisee, George, if you get into, describing Fancy Art NFP to a prospective franchisee?
Yeah, well, Marty, we've gone through several incarnations. Over 23 years, we've been refining and developing this. So it starts out, our shops are very spacious. We have thousands of artworks in stock. We have a lending policy. We'll let people borrow the artwork. So my model is to make it fun and easy for people. And once they discover they personal masterpiece at a reasonable price, it's like Build-A-Bear Workshop for grown-ups. They love it. They come back and do it again.
I love that analogy when I saw that, George, as Build-A-Bear, Workshop, and it was just such a great analogy for describing, what you guys do, and how you've really simplified the process. And NFP, so we should talk about that too, right? Because what does that actually mean? Not
fancy prices. However, when I first started the business, I was interviewing a lady for a position, and she said, NFP, does that stand for not-for-profit? I said, I hope not. It never occurred to me that it means that as well. But my thought was that, we get 1,000 sound bites every day, and they go in one ear and out the other. I thought if you could create a little curiosity, then it would stick.
Right. Exactly, and that's certainly what it does. And it sounds like technology is certainly a big part of this business, isn't it, George?
It is, and we've introduced that. There's a lot of different choices. There's, for example, there's 2,500 different mat boards, different qualities, colors, so on. We have 4,000 frame moldings. There's a lot of different treatments people can give to things. And in the past, everything was done manually, so it was very lengthy and arduous. With third generation of that little computer I mentioned to you, it makes it very fast and easy for the customer to tweak it to their taste and budget. And then once the order is taken, we put that in a cradle, and then the order is transferred over to the store computer, so the shop has a record of the sale. And then after the customer leaves, they can double-check the order, make sure everything's correct, and they push a button, and the order is transferred over the Internet to a local hub. And at the hub, that's where most of the work is done. We fabricate the frame, the glass, and matting, and deliver it back to the shop. What that means is that the shop owner doesn't have to buy a lot of expensive equipment or allocate space for that equipment. They don't have to have the learning curve to learn how to do all that stuff. They don't have leftover materials, and they don't have to have employees to normally be necessary. And also, by bundling everything to a central source, gives us efficiencies and economies of scale that others don't have. We did a marketing piece where we took the same picture, we framed it, then we went to Fast Frame and asked them to frame it as close to ours as possible. Then we snipped out a 50% off coupon and went to Michael. And our price was $146. Fast Frame charged us $273.
Wow.
Michael's 50% off coupon was $264.
Wow.
Every time I show people, I get a wow.
It's and the pricing, the model that you came up with too, George, is that's been, my issue with, in getting frames in the past, is you go up and you get something framed, and usually the price is so much more expensive than you're actually expecting, and then the customer kind of, I guess, goes back and they start looking at other frames. Your technology helps the customers get around that, doesn't it?
Yeah. Again, the whole thing is to make it fun and easy for the customer.
Right.
We have a path tracking system. It's out in the open, so customers can take things off the wall and try different things. And we make it fun for people. And as they're doing this, they become vested in the outcome. Now it's something that they feel that they've created to their personal taste. And then they don't mind spending a little more money because it's something that's special for them.
And people usually spend a bit more when it is personal, isn't it, George? It's studying marketing all these years, people are willing to pay that little extra when it is personal, don't they?
Yeah. We have a report that was from PBS. Paul Solomon, who was our business editor, interviewed a guy named Dan Beerley, who was a behavioral psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
It was about motivates people. And toward the end of it, he said something that struck me. He said, people will spend up to 5 times more for something they feel that they did as opposed to buying something ready-made.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And, the industry, it's interesting for you too, George, because you really are serving, I guess you're serving business customers and you're serving, a regular consumer, So I imagine the market for this is pretty huge, isn't it? I don't know if there's any numbers on your industry, but I guess it's safe to say it's a pretty big and growing market, isn't it?
It is. It's ubiquitous. Millennials who are the trendsetters for today's age, they no longer get part of the Adidas group or the Nike group. They want to establish their own identity. And what better way to do that than through art? Also, I read a study that said that the human mind interpolates a picture 64,000 times faster than it encodes written words, which means that walk face, subconsciously you're forming opinions of the people who own that space. So art does send a message, and that's why people take the time, because they want it to send the right message. Who they are, where they've been, where they're going, what their lifestyle is.
And what I like about your business too, George, is that even the type of customer you're serving, of course, is they have this appreciation for art, right? So you really are dealing with, I guess you could say, a different type of customer. It's not like like you're serving McDonald's, which is the general population. You have a specific type of customer you usually deal with, don't you?
Yes, but they come at all levels. I mean, we frame things for little things that have little value for not much money, and we frame other things that are worth many thousands of dollars, or that have or that are very rare. So it comes in all different sizes, and that's one of the interesting things about the business is every job is different, so it never gets mundane. Mm-hmm. And after 23 years, it's still fun for me to come to work every day.
That's fantastic. Maybe you could talk a little bit about, I know you've had a lot of experiences, since launching this business, George. What's been one of the most interesting things that stands out to you? Just a tough question because you have hundreds of experiences, but does anything stand out over all that time?
Yeah, so many things. Again, we get to touch things that are, everything we touch has a special meaning toward from its owner, and so we try to treat them all that way. But just a quick example, I had a fellow brought into me once a parchment document that was a land grant from King Charles III, signed in 1683 to William Penn. Wow. So there you get Pennsylvania.
There you go. I know William Penn very well. That's fantastic.
So it's a fun business, and again, we have a clientele who appreciate the finer things of life, and they have the discretionary income to afford it, and it's enjoyable.
That's terrific.
Not only because every job is different, but also because our customers are a pleasure to do business with.
That's terrific. At what point did you know you were ready to franchise this concept, George? It sounds like, you really have the system in place, and this is the type of business it seems like almost anyone can get into because it has been systematized. But when did you decide that, okay, you're ready to franchise this model?
Well, at the time I opened the store, my goal was to franchise it, but I knew I had to improve upon it and make it the best it could be before I put it out on the market. So, I developed that computer program, the first version of it, in the early 90s. I think that was probably one of the first apps that was ever made. Wow. The term app hadn't even been coined then, but we're now in the third generation of that, and it was in 2006 that we started preparing to franchise, and then in 2008 is when we formally became a franchise.
That's terrific. Speaking of franchising, George, what types of characteristics then do you look for in your franchisees?
Yeah, I'm looking for someone who is first neat, someone who enjoys dealing with people, interacting with people, someone who has got some basic math skills and can articulate their message well to people, and most important, I guess, is someone who can follow a system. One of the great advantages of franchising is that you can go into any McDonald's and you know what to expect when you go in there.
Right.
You know what it's going to be like, how you're going to be served, and so on and so forth. So there needs to be consistency, and so those are the attributes. That's
good. What about, you were mentioning earlier, George, each day could be a little bit different, as a Fancy Art NFP franchisee. But what is a typical day like, if you could paint a picture of that? No pun intended.
Sure. I'm surrounded by beautiful artwork and soft music. As I said earlier, I have a clientele who appreciate the finer things of life. They have the discretionary income to afford it. And it's a big ticket item.
Right.
Our average sales run, I would say, into the hundreds of dollars. I used to tell my daughter, you have to flip a lot of hamburgers to make that kind of money.
That's true.
Yeah. And so that's pretty much it. And when we're not dealing with customers, then we have orders to fulfill. So, it keeps us busy.
The profit margin is nice on this type of model as well, isn't it, George?
Yeah, we do state in our FDD that we'll charge, again, we're doing most of the work, we're providing most of the materials, we'll charge the franchisee 33% for fabricating the work at the frame. Right. And then we return it to them, they do the finishing touches. So that means that they have a 200% gross markup. Wow. So $300 sale, they would have a gross profit of $200.
That's something.
Which is pretty attractive, I think.
That's fantastic. What is the training like, George? Once you decide, that you do like them, they like you, and they want to come on board as a franchisee, I mean, do they typically come out to headquarters? Is that how it works for training?
Yes. There's 1 week of training, and again, much of what they would need to know, Marty, is already built into that computer. It's very simple to use and operate. It's menu-driven, so it goes from one page to the next, and depending on how you answer the question, it'll branch off in different directions and bring you to a conclusion. So a lot of that is already in there. And after the week of training, and once they open their shop, then I or our representative will come out and work with them for a week when they first open, just to make sure that everything is to refresh their memory as to how things are supposed to be done and so on, and to help them.
Right. That's terrific. What about the location, George? I mean, what do you look for in a location or advise in a location for Fancy Art NFP franchisee, and how much space is actually required?
Yeah, we recommend, and it's on our website. There's a franchise section. It's fancyartnfp.com. We recommend 1,600 to 3,000 square feet.
Okay, good.
That there's adequate parking for people nearby.
Right.
So, like an interior mall I don't believe would be a very good selection, because who wants to ship a piece of artwork half a mile to get to their car? Also, it should be something that is in a fashion area. Walmart gets a lot of traffic. There's a lot of foot traffic, and many of those might be our customers. But when they're going to Walmart, their state of mind is not thinking about artwork. They're just thinking of value, getting something inexpensive and getting in and out. So again, we will help people. We'll give them guidance as far as site selection. They, of course, have to make the final selection. We have to approve it, but they're the ones who are going to make the final selection.
That's terrific. What you've been in business such a long time now, George. So you have all of this experience. We call our listeners aspiring franchipreneurs. Most of them have it in their mind that they want to get into franchising. But in doing the show such a long time now, we find that a lot of them are confused because, as you've been to the franchise shows. There's so much out there. From everything that you've learned up to this point, what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise?
Well, here's what we did, Marty, is you're right. Most people, I think, would like to own a business, but most of them never done it. And I think the reason is if they don't feel they have the know-how, then they lack confidence, they have a fear of failure.
Right.
So what we did is we created a website called Franchise University. University is spelled with a Y-O-U, and it's franchiseuniversity.com. And the course is free, and it goes through all aspects of franchising, from site selection.
That's great.
We look for financing, all the areas of franchising. There's even in the beginning a self-evaluation course, where it's a very short course or questionnaire, and once they respond to that, we will send them the results of it, and it'll help them to determine if this is something that they're really suited for and should pursue. And then of course, they go back through it as often as they like to refresh on things, and it's to help them to be able to make smart business choices and move forward with living their dreams. That's
terrific. Yeah, that's a great tool. We're going to have to direct our listeners to that website, George, because as you mentioned, it's free, and again, I think it's really very helpful. What I also like about your business model too is it seems to me that a lot of, I guess, your clientele or your customers are coming to you. A lot of the franchises that we have on the show, George, sometimes is you have to go out and you have to sell, and it's like you said, you have to be a people person, but it's not a hard sale, is it?
No, it's not. And it's it's great. We have people who come to us from 50 and 100 miles away because they've heard of or seen the work that we've done. And imagine, Marty, if you had a business where you could put a billboard up in a prominent place in a person's home or office recommending you. When people buy artwork from us, that's what happens. It's put in a prominent place in their home or office, and it becomes a focal point of conversation. And they say, oh, that's beautiful. I like that. Where did you get it? I just had a lady a week or two ago. She has done many things with us, embroidery, and she picked up 2 pieces and she dropped off another 2 to be embroidered or to be framed. And that afternoon I was on Facebook, and there are the 2 pieces that she picked up from us, and it's telling all of her friends, oh, look at what I got framed at Fancy Art NFP.
Wow.
There's a lot of word-of-mouth publicity, sure.
That's terrific. What are the plans then, George? I mean, I could ask you as, the founder of the company, I mean, where do you see Fancy Art NFP, if you could look into a crystal ball, maybe like 3 to 5 years down the road? Where do you see the organization?
Yeah, well, the hub and spoke business model is great, and I think as we build momentum, it will expand very quickly. The nice thing about a hub is, number one, it's local. So for the franchisee, if they have a problem or a concern, they have their area rep nearby to help them with it.
Right.
The other thing is that different sectors of the country have different tastes. So what sells well in the Chicago market may not do as well in Pennsylvania or Florida or California. But by having a local hub with satellite locations, they can meet the needs and the demands of their local market better.
That's interesting, George. Yeah, it's it never occurred to me that, right, but I mean the same would occur for your model. It's interesting, because of course we have a lot of food franchises on our show, and like if it's an ice cream franchise, it's always interesting to find out how one type of ice cream sells different in California versus Pennsylvania or Chicago. But yeah, I mean the same rule would certainly apply to your business model as well, doesn't it?
It does, yes.
That's terrific. What's the best way, George, for our listeners to get more information on Fancy Art NFP as a franchise opportunity, and even as the service and the product itself? Is there any websites that you'd like them to go to?
Well, I think the Franchise University would be a good preparation for them, whether they're interested in our franchise or even in something else. It'll give them the primer so that they can make smart business choices and help them determine what's best for them. Incidentally, this is a shortcut to an excerpt from one of the lessons. It's 5 Essentials for Business Success. And they can go to that by going to bit.ly/4BizSuccess. The B in biz and the S in success have to be capitals.
That's fantastic. We can put a link up there on our show page as well, too, George.
Yeah. There they'll find, in it says, I'll just go over very quickly here, 5 Essentials for Business Success. The first thing is find something that is interesting and motivating. Number 2, look for a big market with broad appeal. Number 3, return on investment. Can you make money at it? Number 4, what makes this franchise different? What helps you to stand out from the crowd? And number 5, consider the product's staying power. So many things today are fads. And as quick as our technology is moving, something can become obsolete in a short period of time as well. So they should find something that's durable, that's going to always be a need for.
And that's what attracted me to your business too, George, in studying the model. I mean, it's amazing. I always say I don't want to have any more pizza franchises on the show because, of course, it's a mature market. A lot of the franchise opportunities that we do have on the show, they're in that mature market, so it's hard to find an industry sometimes that is really kind of sort of like in that, new or growth phase, and your business model is certainly in that area, so I really think it's an exciting opportunity, which was why I was so excited to finally have the chance to speak to you today, because I've been following your model for some time now, and I said, I get it, and I said, I have to have you on the show. So it's been a real privilege to finally get to speak with you.
Right. One other thing about mature markets, I use the analogy sometimes, it's kind of like being in a traffic jam. You don't get very far, you burn a lot of gas.
That's a great analogy.
There's a lot of competition. The margins become very slim, and
right.
It's just become more difficult.
That's fantastic. That's a great analogy, George. I'm going to have to steal that one from you if you don't mind. When I'm teaching my marketing students, I like that. I've learned a lot in talking to you, and again, following you, Georgia. And I'd already like to invite you back next year as you continue to grow, because again, I think Fancy Art NFP is a wonderful franchise opportunity.
Thank you.
So this has been my pleasure, George, and we'll be right back with more franchise interviews. Coming up on segment 2, you're going to hear what every franchipreneur needs to know before buying a franchise. We're going to play a clip from our popular Great Quotes in Franchising podcast right here on Franchise Interviews.
Are you looking for a franchise that delivers? Businesses will always need shipping, and for more than 25 years, loyal customers have depended on Unishippers for reliable savings and exceptional customer service. Unishippers is focused on just one thing: helping small and medium-sized businesses save time and money on all their shipping needs. And as the largest reseller of complete shipping services in the country, we have the buying power to ensure that we succeed. The Unishippers franchise offers low startup costs, no equipment or real estate required because they're not retail, residual income, and a quality of life and work-life balance. For more information on becoming a Unishippers franchisee, go to www.unishippers.com and click Franchise Opportunities, or call Franchise Development at 801-708-5822. That's 801-708-5822.
Today's great quote in franchising is being brought to you by
The Stone Coat Franchise Opportunity. Are you looking for a unique and lucrative franchise opportunity? If so, take a look at Stone Coat. With a patented process which creates a true stone finish on almost any wall or ceiling, Stone Coat is a true game-changing product in the multi-billion-dollar construction industry. Stone Coat is applied faster, cleaner, and cheaper than conventional quarried stone, which saves both time and money. With advantages in remodel and new construction of both residential and commercial projects, Stone Coat is a true crossover product. The Stone Coat franchise opportunity provides a low startup cost, low operating expenses, comprehensive training, ongoing support, and no royalty payments. For more information on the Stone Coat franchise opportunity, go to www.stonecoatfranchise.com. That's www.stonecoatfranchise.com, or call us at 972-380-2700. That's 972-380-2700.
Hi everyone, this is Marty McDermott from Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. You know, we've been hosting Franchise Interviews many years now, and during that time we've had some incredible quotes on our show. Today you're going to get to hear from Sam Hance, who is the president of Stone Coat, and one of the questions we asked Sam when we had him on the show was, what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise? And Sam talked about the importance of doing a self-evaluation and asking yourself important questions like, what do you like to do? Because in franchising, experience can be taught. So let's listen to what Sam had to say. Probably one of the most qualified people to answer the question, studying your background, Sam, is what advice would you give to our listeners? We call them aspiring franchipreneurs. You know, most of them are looking to buy a franchise, but as you know, I mean, there's so much out there today. We find that a lot of them just simply don't know where to begin, and it becomes a bit overwhelming. So what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise?
Now, Marty, you're touching something that is dear to my heart right now, because this is the part of business that I love, is helping people find their right fit. And that's the primary thing that I tell people. Your starting point is to do a self-evaluation and come up with the things that you like to do. If you are not a hands-on person, don't get into the lawn maintenance business.
Right.
If you like being outside, there's all kinds of businesses to look at outside. If you're more of a analytical bookkeeping type person, there's franchises there. If you have love food, then food offers great opportunities. So that's the first thing I tell people is really decide what you want to do, what you like to do, not necessarily what you have experience at, because in the franchising world, experience can be taught. So that's the first starting point. Second thing I tell people is figure out your resources and don't overextend. The Chamber of Commerce, National Chamber of Commerce, says that the number one reason for business failures in the United States is undercapitalization. So you've got to know your resources and don't overextend it. Talk to the people that are most important to you and get their input. And I always tell people, give your loved ones permission to hurt your feelings if that's what it takes, so they can be brutally honest about what they see in you. Then when you get to the company, research the owners first. Know who the owners are. Go visit them. Make sure that their goals and ambitions align with what you really are looking for. And character is important. It's extremely important. Yeah. And then the second thing you want to research is the industry. Is it a good, stable industry? And instead of some fad that could come and go. And then the third thing is research the franchise model. Most people get that a little out of order because the first thing they want to do is research the franchise model. And I tell them, no, back up and go look at the owners and then look at the industry, and then thirdly is look at that. And finally, franchising is not selling. Franchising is finding good fits and good matches for life ambitions between the franchisee and the franchisor. And if anybody is pushing you or pressuring you to purchase a franchise, then you need to run away from that as fast as you can. The people on the other side of the table from the prospective franchisee should be just as anxious to get involved in understanding what both sides are looking for.
Wow, it's a great answer. We've been doing the show 10 years, and I have to say that's one of the best responses we've had in almost 500 shows. So I could tell you've been doing this a long time.
Thank you.
It just included everything. It's just a great response. So what are the plans then, Sam? I mean, I can ask you as the president of the organization. I mean, where do you see Stonecoat maybe like 3 to 5 years down the road?
Well,
if you'd like to hear that whole interview with Sam Hance of Stonecoat, all you have to do is go to franchiseinterviews.com, go to our franchises by category page, and go to our home repair and improvement category. You can hear that whole interview. And Sam had a lot of great advice during that particular show. And finally, we just want to thank everyone for making this podcast such a big success. It's hard to imagine now that we've been doing the show almost 10 years now and approaching 500 shows. So we just want to thank everyone for all their support. And we'll see you again soon with another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising from Franchise Interviews. Take care, everyone.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.